So here we are then. Once again, absolutely the front page is dominated by the migrant story, the one story that won't go away, the one story they tried to kill, the one story the BBC tried to say wasn't a story, the one story the government have tried to say isn't a story, but unfortunately it is the big story. Chloe, a very good morning to you.
Morning.
Isn't it extraordinary how suddenly the media has had to catch up with the fact that we've all been talking about this for years, really, and now suddenly everyone's gone, oh my goodness me, we've got a country full of hotels filled with migrants who have come from, you know, very, very backward lands, and we've got a country full of people who don't really know what they're doing here, and we're supposed to be paying for it all.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had this huge tipping point with the High Court injunction by Epping Forest Council, and you know, well done to those mums and dads in Epping and all of the YouTubers and journalists and everyone who went out there to make a big noise about that. Clearly, it worked, and this court decision in Epping sets a huge precedent for the rest of the country. I mean, people have been asking questions for a while. Is this really legal? Putting migrants into a hotel when it technically doesn't make it a hotel, because legally a hotel...
So the planning permission for the hotel has changed altogether, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think the Home Office just thought that they're too big to fail. Oh, because we're the government, we can breach planning laws. It's one rule for the rest of them and a different rule for us, right? But clearly that hasn't worked out, and people have... What the public have shown is we're not going to have it. You can't force whatever you want onto us. You may be the government, but you're not omnipotent. You don't have the power to do whatever you want. We are not going to have it. And if they try to put migrants in a load of HMOs and houses in our communities, which they'll try to do after this, people also aren't going to have it. There are going to be more protests. I
think it's the end of the road.
People feel confident enough to go out and make their voices heard now. And I really think... You know, I hope, because I think they deserve to have the chaos, the Home Office, of all these hotels closing. I mean, I hope that all of these councils across the country will do it. We had on the same day as Epping had that big win, we had Broxbourne Council put out a statement, and then the following day we've had loads of them, including two Labour-run councils, Wirral and Tamworth, have said, sorry Labour Party, sorry Home Office. We've had enough of this. We don't care if we're part of the Labour Party.
Because everybody knows, and you and I, again, have spoken about this many times, everybody knows the actual truth of what is going on. People are taking the mickey out of this country. They're coming here for all sorts of different reasons. They're not fleeing war. They're not fleeing famine. They're not fleeing torture. They're just coming here because they fancy a good go at ripping off the system. There's a bloke in the Daily Mail here, right, an asylum seeker living in a taxpayer-funded hotel in London. And this is the one at the Thistle City Barbican in London, where there was a big demonstration outside. Right, he's sitting in his room. It shows a MacBook laptop, an iMac computer, Selfridges bags, and a £580 Louis Vuitton wallet. And basically, he's from Sudan originally, apparently, but he spent the last 2 years living in Dubai before coming to Britain. And he's said to be living a sort of Silicon Valley lifestyle. He works for an investment company in the Middle East, and he says, you know, I'm having a great time. I'm living here basically rent-free. I'm living here tax-free. I'm not paying any tax at all. And he's making money for his wife, who lives in Dubai.
I mean, it's an absolute joke.
This is part of the asylum-seeking system. It's nonsense.
And the reason he's claiming asylum is because he's gay, apparently. And the person that spoke to the Daily Mail said they asked...
He's clearly not gay, is he?
Yeah, said they asked the guy, is that a false claim? And he said, of course it is. Yeah. He admitted it. He's literally just made this up. So
he's got a wife who lives in Dubai.
He can live off the taxpayers first. You've got taxpayers who are far poorer than he is, who can't go to Selfridges every day and buy all these fancy goods. They're having to pay for this guy to be put up in a hotel, probably gets a lovely buffet 3 times a day whilst you're at home. You know, one of the stories we've got today that you've mentioned is the food retailers talking about food inflation. You've got people who are, you know, having to just eat frozen peas and chicken nuggets whilst we've got all these guys in hotels having a lovely buffet 3 times a day. It's just completely taking the mickey, and this whole Epping situation has shown people just, they're not going to take it anymore.
They're not.
They're not going to be willing to sit tight until 2029, or we'll just wait till Nigel Farage gets in. No, we can't take 4 more years
of it. And also,
this
is what the government's saying, it's going to take us until this Parliament to get rid of all of these people from hotels. You know, even the Epping story showed that they're not going to do that, because they challenged the actual Epping Council challenge to them, who said, you know, we want these people out. And they went, no, we're actually going to try and get the judge to stop that from happening. So they wanted to try and keep the people in the hotel. But in this story in the Mail, it says that this Sudanese designer is being housed in one of the rooms at the top of the Barbican Hotel, often in great demand because they've got bigger, larger bedrooms and better bathrooms. And you're kind of going, sorry, the Thistle City Barbican has been at the centre of outrage for quite a long time. People have described this guy as speaking perfect English. He's very well educated, he's very calm, he's jovial, he's funny, and there are plenty of other people like him in the building. And we're getting police standing outside it, protecting these guys, and they're just literally taking the mickey out of us.
I mean, I've had enough of it, and the whole country has it. And speaking of fancy hotel rooms, there was a video out the other day of a guy, one of the guys who's been streaming all of his whole journey to Britain and everything, him showing his hotel room.
Oh, is this the TikTok migrant
where
guy?
He's got a double bed and 2 single beds and an ensuite. And I'm thinking, hang on, why aren't there 3 migrants living in that room? Why aren't they making them share to save money? But no, he's got the whole place to himself. I mean, you know, when I did a bit of travelling when I was younger, I had to stay in hostels with bunk beds full of loads of people because I couldn't afford to have hotels. That's what you do when you're young and you're travelling, right? But someone who's apparently fleeing war, right? They've got to have 3 beds to themselves and an ensuite and bouncy castle trips, and the list goes on.
It really is. The tide is turning, is what it says on pages 4 and 5 of the Sun, because people are in this country sick to death of it. And how about this, right, for another highlighted story? A migrant has been found guilty of sexually assaulting 3 women while cycling from his illegal job at a car wash to his asylum hotel. This is a bloke called Kays Al Aswad, 26 years of age, struck over a 3-week period along the same bike path, basically in in Hawley in Surrey. CCTV showed the migrant wearing distinctive jackets, trainers and an Air Jordan rucksack while riding the purple bike, because they get all this free stuff as well. They get given literally free. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this on social media, but you see them all like on TikTok all the time now, you know, saying, oh, we've got this new gear, you know, isn't it great, we've got Nike shoes, we've got Nike jackets. You know, I don't know where this idea came from that we have to give these people everything for free. You know,
they say,
mind, you know, show sanctuary.
You have to give them those things because they're not allowed to work. First of all, they are.
Well, this guy is working.
And second of all, they're getting far more than they need to get by. I mean, they've got pretty much everything gets paid for them, including if they've got a doctor's appointment, they've got the special privilege to have their transport and everything paid for, right? But then they get these 50 quid a week Aspen cards, right? And I'm thinking, when I was a kid, I didn't get anywhere near 50 quid a week pocket money. I had no pocket money and had to, you know, sell handmade cards and whatnot to try and make a few coffers to buy a new T-shirt, right? And then when I was in sixth form, my parents said, oh, well, you can buy your stationery and your clothes now. We'll give you 50 quid a month. Right. I never got 50 quid a week.
50 quid a week, no chance.
And I think most kids in the country probably don't get that kind of pocket money from their parents, but these guys... They've got it all. They are living the high life.
They are living the high life.
And people will say, oh, no, you're just showing a very, you know, you're just zooming in on a couple of extreme cases where people have got a really nice hotel. And most of them are living in hotels where there are rats running around and it's squalid conditions, unsuitable for humans. And I'm thinking, last time I checked, the worst hotels in this country are typically a Premier Inn or a Travelodge, which are still always really clean and still... We don't have that bad hotels in this country. It can't be that bad.
It really isn't.
It really can't.
I mean, the Bell Hotel in Epping doesn't look brilliant, doesn't look great, but still... Yeah,
some of them are a little bit run down,
but... it doesn't matter. The point is that these people have come to this country and they're being given everything for free, and they're being treated like sort of, you know, royal visitors. They're getting three free meals a day. They can walk around freely. They can apparently leer at women. They can assault them if they wish. They can just do whatever the hell they like. I mean, according to Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, yesterday, she wrote to all 65 Conservative councils celebrating the victory of Epping and said that they should take the same steps to protect your community and go for it. So basically, Keir Starmer now is in a terrible bind, isn't he? Because they've got nowhere to put these people. You know, people have said, oh, is this now not a victory for common sense because they're all going to be put into HMOs, they're going to be put into houses in communities? They can't be, because there isn't the room. I mean, even if they take all of the people out of the Epping Hotel, I think there's a couple of hundred people there. There's nowhere to take them.
That's a lot of houses.
There's nowhere to put them.
So and they may have to resort to something like... putting them in tents in a field.
Putting them in tents in a field, or in some kind of, you know, military-style barracks.
Yeah,
let's do it.
And that will be, exactly, let's do it. That will be more appropriate. I'm sorry, if you turn up illegally, you don't deserve to have a big fancy posh roof over your head, because people are absolutely furious of seeing people being treated better than them. If they were put in tents or something a bit more simple, people would maybe be more sympathetic
they might be.
about people turning up in this country. Not that we want them turning up, but there'd be a heck of a lot more, a heck of a lot less resentment building. But that's also, if Labour have to do that, they are going to look like such hypocrites.
Yeah, they really are.
Because they are the ones who will have been saying, oh, you can't put them on the Bibby Stockholm barge. That will be against their human rights, even though the Bibby Stockholm barge is fine for the oil workers that normally rent it out. They've got a whole company of a whole fleet of these boats that they rent out to various different workers, like oil rig workers. No problem for them. But the human rights lawyers and the Labour Party were like, oh no, you can't.
It's all over
you
for
can't
these
possibly
bozos,
put them.
right?
If they were like that about the Bibby Stockholm barge, and then they say, guys, we're going to have to put them in tents, it's going to be hilarious. But you know what? They deserve the chaos. I doubt they got any sleep at the Home Office last night. Yvette Cooper's probably a wreck this morning, but I don't care.
Well, I'm still waiting.
And maybe this will
We're
give
still
them...
waiting, don't forget, for a regular update from Yvette Cooper, because 13 days ago now, we're counting the days here on Morning Glory, 13 days ago, she said, we will not give operational information out because it might help the smugglers, but we will give regular updates on the people we've detained and the people we're returning, right? She claimed that they were actually detaining people as of that moment, 13 days ago. Have a look at the clip.
We'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
We're still waiting for an update. That was 13 days ago. The last update on her Twitter account is from the 7th of August.
Yeah, I think that
She's not told us anything since then.
Yeah, I mean, that was on a Thursday or Friday that she said that. And they very much gave the impression that they detained people and that week, so by the end of that weekend, people would be going back to France. Now, my understanding is France has 14 days after Britain has alerted them of who they want to send back. They've got 14 days to approve it. So maybe we'll find out in the next couple of days, but I wouldn't be surprised if all of the people they've detained, all 5 of them probably,
or 2,
have all lodged human rights claims.
Yeah, of course they have. Of course they have.
And this has been a whole hoo-ha because we've had... on this side, you've had the government saying, oh, we should be able to send them to France before any human rights claims have been tried. We can send them straight over. But the French have said, we won't take anyone unless they have no outstanding human rights claims. So there's this big disparity in what both sides are saying. Nobody knows how this is going to work. Nobody knows where in France they're actually going. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not just being kept secret from us for safety reasons, but they actually have no idea what the plan is in the Home Office.
If you think that they have a plan, have a look at what Dan Jarvis, his security minister, said yesterday to Radio 4.
If it's not hotels, as security minister, what is it?
It won't be hotels because of the commitment that we've made, and therefore it will have to be a range of other more appropriate accommodation. I mean, your point about the legal challenge is right, but this is not a new issue.
If it's not hotels, it is important to know what.
Yeah, so for reasons that I completely understand, you're focusing on one particular bit of this problem, and I'm evidencing the activity right across the sort of the spectrum of the challenge in terms of the leveraging diplomatic relations with our partners internationally and stopping the flow of people getting to the northern beaches of France in the first place.
So they haven't got a clue what they're doing, have they?
No.
They don't know what to do. They just go...
You can tell from that clip, and the people listening on radio may not realise this, but whilst he was answering those questions, he was looking down, super nervous, not looking the interviewer in the eye. Why? Because he's got no idea what he is talking about. We'll have to move them to more appropriate accommodation. Okay,
Such as?
Yeah, what's that? Is it going to be a tent? Is it going to be a house? And let's not forget, people are freaking out saying, where are we going to put the migrants that are from the Epping hotel? Presumably it's only a few hundred. You've got that many people, you've got hundreds turning up every single day.
Exactly right.
And now the Home Office, I doubt they're going to be able to open up any more hotels after this Epping ruling.
The only good news for the government is that this week, because of the easterly winds that have apparently been blowing across the Channel, there actually haven't been very many crossings made in the last 3 or 4 days. So the migrant tracker has actually stuck at 51,239 since Keir Starmer got in.
Still a very high number, not exactly a win.
I keep complaining to the migrant tracker guys here, going, "Are you sure about this? Are you sure it hasn't got up to 53,000?" And apparently, for the last 4 days, literally nobody's crossed because it's too choppy and the wind's blowing in the wrong direction. So at least there's one thing. And do you remember when Yvette Cooper said that it was all down to the weather as to whether or not they could actually stop these people coming? So thanks to that, at least it's not been exacerbated to the point where thousands more people have actually arrived in Dover. But make no mistake, by the end of the week, the wind will have changed and there'll be another 2,000 people. 2,500 people have come.
That's multiple hotels.
Since they announced the one in, one out ridiculousness, right, for 13 days ago, 2,500 people have come and nobody's gone back. So, it's a pretty simple...
Even if 50 have gone back, and they can say, we've done it. That's a tiny number compared to 2,000 odd coming across the Channel. Absolute joke. And they're not very good at managing expectations, are they? Because every time they announce something new, they say, this is it. Yeah. This is going to solve the whole problem. The gangs are going to be smashed after we spot 50. Rather than saying, we're just trying this out, it probably won't work, but we're just experimenting with things. Hold your horses, guys. No, everything they say, this is going to solve all our problems.
It's all crap, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really. This is Telegraph is reporting this. The Home Office has issued an urgent appeal for 5,000 properties to house up to 20,000 migrants. Asylum accommodation contractors working for the Home Office have reached out, apparently, to property specialists earlier in the month of August, seeking 5,000 residential units. Insiders suggest each flat would have 2 bedrooms on average, with space to house 4 migrants. Nobody wants to live next door to these people. What will happen, as you've said before, is that people will find out where they're staying and they'll go and demonstrate outside it. The whole country is now cooked.
Yeah, there's no stopping people now.
Is done.
I mean, the Home Office, they've tried to stop that from happening by not telling us where the migrant hotels are. They still won't give us a full list, will they, of where they are, and they think people just won't notice when one appears in their community.
But people do notice.
They're going to notice. They have noticed, and now people have found the confidence to go out and protest. And it's going to be exactly the same if they put them all in houses and HMOs. You've already
just deport them. Just get rid of them. Simple, right? That solves the problem. Don't house them. Don't invite them. Don't treat them well. Kick them out of the country. It's not difficult, this, is it?
It's not difficult, but they haven't got the tenacity to do it.
No, they haven't. Let's have a look at what South Norfolk Council leader Daniel Elmer says he's going to do.
We're hopeful that what the High Court said yesterday validates the position we already had. Ultimately, we think this is a planning issue. They've said the use has changed. We think the use has changed. If me or you put up an illegal shed in our garden, it goes and gets torn down because it hasn't got planning permission. We need to be holding these hotels to the same standard.
He's right. If you put up a shed in your garden, in some cases, if your leylandii grows a little bit too big, the council come around and go, "Oh, you have to cut that down." You put a flag up, for heaven's sake. In Birmingham or Tower Hamlets, we'll get onto that in a minute. They're round like Billy-O going, "You better take that down, mate." Yeah.
So for safety reasons, you're not allowed flags, which is just a little bit of cloth. By the way, it won't hurt you. But safety isn't really a concern when it comes to migrants with backwards views about women going around the town causing chaos and assaulting people. That's not a safety concern, but flags. And also a St George's cross on a roundabout. That's going to confuse all the drivers, and they won't know how to drive around it. They'll go the wrong way round, apparently, if you put a cross on it.
Yeah, better get an investigative team on that one. I mean, it's totally mad, isn't it? Absolutely bloody ridiculous. This is the only place to be. The best breakfast show in the world, 6:24. Chloe Dobbs and I back after this. Welcome back to Morning Glory, 27 minutes past 6. I'm here with Chloe Dobbs. Mark in Selby says, "Mike, it chokes me to thank Two-Tier and Yvette for anything. However, their silence and inaction over illegal immigration has stirred the British line into action. Start boxing up your free suits and get out of number 10. This is the crisis that we've been waiting for, that may, in fact, dislodge these bozos, right? Joanna from Salisbury says, "Mike, I'm betting Keir Starmer's bottom lip cold sore is getting worse this morning. He's definitely biting that bottom lip now." Yeah, he must be, because he's still still has not ever really acknowledged that this is an issue. We'll be checking in with his Twitter account in a minute to see what's going on. But let's get a voice note first from Lee.
Morning, Mike. Starmer's back. He's laying low in Scotland. He's probably got jet lag. Mike, in a time of national emergency, which is what this migrant crisis is, he needs to take urgent action. He needs to get himself back down to London, recall Parliament, declare a state of emergency, and address this #1 issue that everyone in the country is fuming about. There's no point hiding away in Scotland and then disappearing off somewhere else. He needs to get himself back down here and address it.
Yeah. I think he's absolutely has to, because he's never, this is the funny thing, Chloe, he has never, despite all of the ridiculous, crazy sort of videos that he puts out on his social media account, his Twitter account, his TikTok account, he's never actually addressed this business of migrant hotels. He's never bothered to actually talk to the people who are demonstrating. He's never bothered to investigate what is going on. He's never gone and spoken to anybody. We spoke to people down in Epping probably 3-4 weeks ago, and we said to them, what do you want from Keir Starmer if you've got a message for him? And they said, just tell him to come down and talk to us and find out why we're upset and why we don't like having these men mingling in our community, and sort of, you know, threatening our young girls, and you know, whether it's your sister or your daughter or your cousin, you know, he needs to come and find out what the problem is, and he didn't know. And he won't do it, and that's the problem.
And he's definitely paying the price for being out of touch with people, whether it's this issue, the migrant crisis, him not understanding. This isn't a load of racist bigots. Most of the people in Epping, a lot of them are not really even that political. They're just some mums and dads who are
families
concerned. And then on other things, they made a complete mess of the whole farming situation, right, by doing this tax which wasn't even going to raise that much money, but because they were out of touch and they didn't actually speak to farmers. And then, you know, the winter fuel pensioners, out of touch, didn't speak to people and caused themselves an absolute mess. And I understand if you say, you know what, I love politics, I want to go into it, I want to be Prime Minister, but I've grown up in London all my life and I don't really know what's going on around the country. I'm going to go, I'm going to make an effort to be more in touch, and I'm going to speak to people. I don't know anything about farming, so I'm going to talk to a bunch of farmers and see what... He doesn't make the effort at all. He's just more interested in going to conferences where he can have champagne and free sliders.
He went to the Farmers Union conference the previous year before he was Prime Minister, and he promised them that he would not put inheritance tax on them, right? So he lied to them. That's the other thing. I mean, he's disingenuous and he's a liar.
And we're going to see a lot more promises breaking in the autumn,
really
aren't we?
This from Kate in the Wirral. Nearly fell off my chair when I saw my local council in the press for the right reasons. However, the cynic in me can't help but think that these are the actions of councillors who don't want to face the boot, not because it's the right thing to do. As I said yesterday, Nightingale hospitals went up in 6 weeks. Well, you know, whatever the reason is for these councils taking the action that they're taking, I think we've got to applaud them at least for taking on the government on behalf of their own constituents and saying, look, you know, our people do not want these migrants in our hotels. We want them moved, we want them out, we want them kicked out of the country, and so we don't really care what you do. The only one of course, a few places where they said they want them is Brighton. That was yesterday when the leader of Brighton Council came out and said, oh, you know, we are a sanctuary city, you know, we're going to keep offering places for them to come and stay and be welcomed by our people.
I mean, that is suicidal of Brighton. It's a huge tourist hotspot. Everyone goes down to go to the beach. That's their income, right? Is people coming down to Brighton for a nice day out. It's not going to be a nice day out if you've got all these gangs of men who have got nothing to do, going up and down the streets, shoplifting, talking to women inappropriately. I'm not saying that that's every single migrant, of course, just to be clear, but there will be some of them. And inevitably, if you put a load of blokes in a hotel who can't work and have got nothing to do, they're going to get up to no good. Even if you put a load of English lads in a hotel and said, you got nothing to do, go figure, and here's some free money to splash around as well. What do you expect them to get up to?
Exactly.
No one's going to go to Brighton if
that's the case.
Well, but maybe we'll just let them learn their lesson. We'll send them all there and see what they think.
Listen to what Sarah Pochin had to say. She was on with Jeremy Kyle yesterday.
Last time we all looked, France was a safe country. Why aren't they staying there? And I go back to what I said before. They're coming here because we are a soft touch with our benefit system. They get a house, they get money in their pocket, they get free dental appointments, free GP appointments. We all know the list now, ever increasing and shocking. Zoo tickets, cinema tickets, you name it, they're getting it.
What would you say to Brighton Council?
Well, you know what, if they want them, you take them then. Because I tell you what, in the northwest we've had enough, and let's move them all down to Brighton if you want them.
Fair enough, absolutely right. As citizens, if we build a wall, says Dan in Lingfield, cut a tree down, build an extension, the council will be over us in a flash with no planning permission. Why have councils waited this long to go to court and close the hotels? This should have been done years ago and could have even saved Lucy Connolly from going to jail if the illegally run asylum hotel was closed down. Let's talk about Lucy Connolly, because apparently within hours she's about to be released. So we await the news that will happen. Hopefully it will happen sooner rather than later. And obviously we, like many others, will be chasing her to try and get an interview with her. And it'll be interesting to see what she's got to say for herself.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge story, but not for Keir Starmer, because apparently he doesn't know who this woman is. You ask him about Lucy Connolly.
He didn't know about it. Oh, actually, that's a great clip. We should go and find that one.
Who's that? I'm not over
that?
the details of that case.
Yeah.
So Keir Starmer, I'm sure, won't be too concerned, but I think the rest of the country is going to be very happy to see her finally out of prison. It's completely insane that she was in there in the first place, and we heard all sorts of stories. We had Alison Pearson from the Telegraph. She went in to prison and spoke to her there to find out what was going on, and we were finding out that she wasn't being given the privileges that other inmates who were far more violent were allowed. They seem to think that Lucy Connolly was less safe to, for example, visit her children and her husband. You know, she's got a 12-year-old little girl who I'm sure that poor girl is probably traumatised. And think what it's like at school. Like, oh, where's your mummy? We haven't seen her dropping you off at school lately. Oh, my mummy's in prison. Like, can you imagine having to say that to your school friends? That's horrible.
I know, it's
poor
horrible.
girl, and my understanding is her husband is sick and she helps take care of him, and she's not there to do that.
There's no question that she's been treated more harshly than any other prisoner who's ever been sent to prison in this country because of Keir Starmer and because of the overbearing and overarching view of the government that you had to go after these people and make an example of them. There's no question in my mind. And we saw Ricky Jones, the story this week, getting basically freed because he was found not guilty of inciting a riot, even though what he said was a lot worse than what she did, and he did it to a much bigger audience. He did it live on television where he was talking about slitting people's throats. Now, I'm actually a bit of a libertarian when it comes to this, and I'm glad actually that he didn't go to prison, and I think that she shouldn't have gone to prison either. But the difference is that she pleaded guilty because she was told to plead guilty by her lawyer, who was given the instruction, make her plead guilty, tell her that she'll get off early, and tell her that she'll be able to get home soon if she does that, and then we'll just lock her up for a long time. And I think that's the most cynical thing that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in various debates where I've had to talk about Lucy Connolly, and the lefty will always say, oh no, but she pleaded guilty, therefore she is guilty. It's like, no, she didn't want to plead guilty. She was told that you're most likely to get a shorter sentence if that is what you do. We know this happens in court cases all the time. People plead guilty who don't genuinely believe that they are guilty. That is clearly the case with Lucy Connolly, and it was a great shame that she lost that appeal when she was trying to be released early. I mean, I can't remember the exact quote of what the judges said, but I thought it was a pretty pathetic.
Well, they basically went, there was no difference in the legal situation, so therefore we're not even going to entertain it. But let's we found the clip, I think, from Keir Starmer when he was asked about Lucy Connolly. Check this out.
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely. I'm equally, though, against incitement to violence against other people. That has long been an offence in our country, and rightly so. And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no.
How does he not know the details of the story which has been on the front pages for weeks and weeks and weeks? At the time that he was asked that question, she had been on the front pages. Alison Pearson had written about it. You know, everybody knew about Lucy Connolly, and he's pretending that he doesn't know about it.
Of course he knows about it. I mean, presumably they've got a whole big press team at Number 10 that tells him what's in all the papers in the morning, right? Of course he knows about it. That's just another example of the man lying through his teeth. We're not buying. You could see how nervous he was there. He does his and looks down because he doesn't want to.
The details.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to talk about it. And then he says there, oh, of course I'm completely against incitement of violence, but you had
and as long as it's not a Labour councillor, of course, because that's okay. You know,
I know. I mean, the double standards are crazy. But there are people who were genuinely involved in violence, not just put up a tweet that they took down a few hours later, but involved in violence in the rights who got shorter sentences than her. I keep seeing story after story of people who have raped people who are getting shorter sentences than her. That makes my blood absolutely boil. I can't remember the exact details, but I saw another story yesterday of, you know, the conviction was sexual activity with a child. Right. Less time in prison than Lucy Connolly. How can you justify that? How can you say, oh, we don't have a two-tier justice system, when you have people who have literally raped children being put behind bars for less time than Lucy Connolly? There's no
it's shocking.
way that you can justify that disparity. Absolutely no way.
Yeah, no way at all. Mike from Ottery says, Mike, how many migrants have the French sent here since one in, one out? Great show. Well, 2,500 basically is the number. It's gone very quiet in the last few days simply because the wind is blowing in the wrong direction, and it turns out that that makes it quite difficult for people to get from Calais to here. Carl in Cornwall says, morning Mike and Chloe. Yes, these illegal migrants are taking the mickey out of us, but our own politicians that allowed this to happen are also taking the mickey out of us. It's an utter scandal and everyone's fed up being gaslit and lied to. These people shouldn't be here. Detention and deportation is the only answer, and they're going to have to address it whether they like it or not. Keir Starmer and the British Labour government are going to have to go, do you know what? We're going to have to just kick these people out of the country because we've got nowhere to put them. There's not enough private houses.
But how are they going to do that when they don't want to leave the ECHR?
Well, I don't know.
What are they going to do?
But they're going to have to find a way.
It may well be they all end up in tents somewhere in a field or something, and they're going to look like absolute idiots and huge hypocrites for that. And the left are going to rip each other apart because you're going to have all the human rights fanatics. And I mean, Keir Starmer is one of those.
Well, Keir Starmer is also
going absolutely crazy about the fact that they're in a tent. I mean, some people actually go on camping holidays, you know. People enjoy staying in a tent. It's not that bad. I've been on school trips. We went to the Isles of Scilly. We had to stay in tents for a week. I didn't die. It wasn't that posh, fine. But I didn't die. I was fine.
No, they can deal with it. I mean, supposedly, supposedly it's got to be better than being in a war situation, isn't it? Keir Starmer, by the way, has been accused of hypocrisy over the prosecution of Lucy Connolly.
Starmer accused of hypocrisy? I know. I've never heard of him being a hypocrite. Because
listen to this, though, right? She's going to be released after being sentenced to 31 months in prison for posting those comments that she did. But basically, here's what he said about talking about freedom of speech, right? He's defended her conviction, saying that while he was strongly in favour of free speech, he was equally against incitement to violence, as we just saw him saying there. But in 2013, when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, he introduced guidance for prosecutors to consider a more lenient approach towards suspects who swiftly deleted their social media posts and expressed genuine remorse. Now, she deleted her social media post after 3 hours, right? It was only seen by something like 26 or 27 people, right? So, because she's not, you know, she's not me or you. She hasn't got thousands of followers. The guidance urged prosecutors to consider 4 factors where a prosecution is unlikely to be both necessary and proportionate. These included if swift and effective action has been taken by the suspect and or others, for example, service providers, to remove the communication in question or otherwise block access to it. So he's actually giving her an out there. He's saying in 2013 he wouldn't have prosecuted Lucy Connolly, but in 2024 he did.
I mean,
what an absolute and utter hypocrite.
I mean, what a huge hypocrite. And his mate Lord Hermer was given the opportunity to review the sentencing of Lucy Connolly, and he just said no.
No, he was too busy giving away the Chagos Islands.
Yeah.
It's 6:41. We've got to run because we're running late, and this, of course, is the home of common sense. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Morning Glory at 6:43, right here on the home of common sense. Mike in Newcastle says, hi Mike and Chloe, how ironic that it is the rule of law that Starmer is so keen on that is now his undoing. Oh dear, how sad, never mind. Well, let's go back in time because we found, the team here and Christian, the producer, has found a clip from March 2023 when Keir Starmer was in opposition, of course, when he wasn't Prime Minister. Here's what he said about migrant hotels.
And what happens to the rest? They sit in hotels and digs for months on end at the taxpayers' expense. Last year, he promised to end the hotel farce. That's the talk.
Years. And so, meanwhile, more people are staying in hotels now than ever before, because let's not forget the Bell Hotel in Epping actually was closed by the Tories and then reopened by who? Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, who
and
said...
it used to be families staying in that hotel.
Right.
Not ideal, but better than a load of men, and they changed it to it being a load of men. And the reality is that if the boats don't stop coming, then they've got to put them somewhere, and they have not smashed the gangs. There has been absolutely no urgency whatsoever. I mean, I couldn't believe last summer they came into power in July. You've then got the best weather of the summer in July and August when you know the boats are going to flood across. And they didn't bother until about October. There wasn't a person in charge of the new
no, there was no border command, was there?
Until the autumn, after people have flooded across all summer. No urgency whatsoever. They don't care, and now they're paying the price. It's absolute chaos, and quite frankly, they deserve it.
This will amuse you. This was put out by Keir Starmer yesterday at about 9:47 in the morning, because there's always a Twitter receipt, isn't there? I am determined to smash the business model used by people smugglers, and I'm taking joint action with our allies to make it happen. He says, building on our deal with France and renewed international cooperation, our strengthened partnership with Iraq will deter small boat arrivals and secure our borders. It's just rubbish, isn't it? You might as well just say, my name is Keir Starmer, I'm an absolute liar, and the next 5 minutes of speech that's going to come out of my mouth will mean absolutely nothing. Here's what he said. Do you remember when he was in front of the liaison committee last month, and people said, where are you going to put all these migrants? You know, how is it going to be possible to house them?
There are loads of houses.
Yeah, have a look.
Just a big pinpoint before. What other accommodation precisely are you planning to take over to provide temporary accommodation for families?
Oh, there's lots of housing in many local authorities that can be used, and we're identifying where it can be used. But I mean, look.
Sorry, could you give us? Have you got any examples you can give us?
No, but I'll write in and give you details.
Because I have to say, certainly in a number of our local authorities, already picking up from around the table, there isn't a lot of spare housing available. If there were, councils would be able to be dealing with it by now.
Well, exactly.
And then he goes, exactly, like he's agreeing with it. I wonder if he's actually written in.
I doubt
we did say that we were going to try and follow that up, and so we will continue to try and follow that up with the Home Office. I'll write in with details of where all these houses are. You know, the man is a complete numpty. I've never met or seen a more ineffective, useless, hopeless, absolutely, completely rudderless bloke who doesn't know what he's doing in his own job. I mean,
I don't know about you, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad. No. I knew Labour were going to be useless, but I didn't think you could muck it up this badly in the space of 1 year.
Listen, I thought they're going to do things that I'm not going to like. They're going to do things that I'm not going to agree with because, you know, politically I'm not on their side of the divide, if you like. But I didn't know they'd be this incompetent, and because they really are incompetent. They don't know what to do. Look at Rachel Reeves, right? She completely smashed the economy. Never mind smashing the gangs, right? She's in the papers today talking about doing all manner of other things to try and raise some money. She's coming after people who have got houses now. She's talking about putting a wealth tax on property. She's talking about putting even more taxes on pensions. She's going to come after your pension. And, you know, there's an amount of at the moment you can take 25% of your pension once you've reached a certain age, which is tax free. She's going to come after that. You know, she's being warned today by the heads of businesses like John Lewis and Tesco's and the Co-op that she's basically killing the economy and our living standards are going to drop as a result.
And that's Starmer's whole thing is the budget is going to be all about living standards. They're saying it's all going to be about living standards to try and distract from the fact that it's all going to be about tax rises. But now you've got everyone saying, well, even living standards are plummeting. And the people who have pointed this out are the supermarkets like Tesco and whatnot, who can see the food inflation is through the roof. And they're pointing out, look, if you make us pay way higher minimum wage, national insurance for all the people that work for us on the checkouts and whatnot, we're going to have no choice but to put the prices up even more. And although the typical household only spends about 11-12% of their income on food, it's the people who are at the bottom where a huge proportion of their income is spent on food, and a little bit of food inflation massively affects their living standards. And Keir Starmer, when he put out that video, as he puts out many stupid videos saying how living standards are going to be the focus in the autumn budget, he says, we've improved people's living standards because we have raised the minimum wage. And I'm like, hang on, loads of people have also been fired
Yes.
because of that hike in the minimum wage and the national insurance.
Also, when they
I'm
talk
sure
about,
all those people who are now out of work are not feeling like their living standards have been raised.
When they talk about wages going up, the only reason wages have gone up is because they have completely skewed the system by giving public sector workers massive pay rises. You know, you give 22% to the doctors, 14% to the train drivers. That's going to put prices up, and it's going to put, you know, wages up, because it's going to be, you know, practically a ridiculous situation. But nobody in the private sector is doing that. But look, how about this, right? Pictures on the front page of the Mail today show Angela Rayner drinking out of a giant glass of wine, because she's another one who's a complete disaster in government. Raising a glass to your war on the middle classes, Ms. Rayner, it says. She's apparently sitting on the beach at her hove, wearing one of those, what do they call those?
The dry robes, and the viewers need to see it.
Yeah, there it is.
It's a dry robe, and she's got the ugliest one that you can buy, which is the one that has army print on the outside and hot pink fluff on the inside. Awful. I mean, she's never been good at fashion choice, because she wears like snot green coloured suits and whatnot. But the forget the glass of wine, the dry robe, that's really hacked me off, that has.
Well, the worst thing about the news about Angela Rayner this morning is that, and this is a Guido exclusive, it turns out that her staffing costs alone in her department of levelling up and housing have risen by £6.4 million since she's been in charge as a minister. So, you know, there's no austerity going on in government. They're spending more and more money. They're hiring more and more people. Thousands and thousands of them have now got, you know, more special advisors, more press advisors, more PR people. There's thousands of people working in Downing Street trying to deliver the message that, you know, this government's doing a great job, which of course they're not doing very well, because the government is not doing a great job.
I mean, I thought Rachel Reeves said, when was it? She said a while ago that she's going to have a, quote, war on waste in the civil service and in government. What happened to
How's that going?
She hasn't mentioned that recently, funnily enough. She's more interested in figuring out how she can steal more money from you all. And she's going to really struggle, because, I mean, all of these things she's trying to propose now, because she's absolutely desperate, none of them are really going to raise a huge amount of money. So this idea of taxing people on the profit they make on the sale of their main house, that's going to be hugely unpopular. But that's only expected to raise $2 billion out of the $50 billion that she needs to make up. So it's not much progress. $2 billion out of $50 billion, and it will cause an absolute storm. Just like how the winter fuel payment being cut wasn't going to raise much money, but cause an absolute storm. Same with the tax on farmers. Was only expected to raise, I think, about 500 million a year was the estimate. Hugely,
it's less than £1 billion.
Awful for their reputation. They're going to have to put up income tax. It's what they're going to do, and it's going to be a.
But the thing is, people are now getting more and more sophisticated about this, and they're saying, put up my income tax to pay for something decent. Don't put up my income tax to pay for migrants. Don't put it up to pay for, you know, the unemployed. Don't put it up to pay for Ukraine. There are things that people will not pay for, and people will revolt. I'm telling you this. There's absolutely no question at all.
Well, I mean, people don't mind paying. Of course, people don't like paying high taxes, but they don't mind it so much if the money is actually going on something decent. We had on the channel here yesterday or day before, Charlie, what's his surname?
Charlie Mullins,
Pimlico Plumbers. And he was saying, I've gone off to Spain and the taxes aren't lower here. I'm paying just as much tax, but my money is not being given to a load of blokes in hotels and people on benefits who are getting them for anxiety and whatnot, who are just taking the mick. People don't mind if their money is being spent on something decent. I mean, where I live, the council tax is really high, but people don't mind because the streets are super clean, super safe, lovely flower displays, everything is well taken care of. Whereas this country, it's like they just keep taking more and more from you and doing less and less for you.
Exactly right, absolutely. Listen, we're running up against the clock here. We're nearly out of time, 6:53. We've got to take another break. We'll be back after this with more stories of woe and nastiness. To wit, Axel Rudicabana has apparently got his prison perks back. Because he's got good behaviour for a couple of weeks. Unbelievable stuff. We'll tell you all about that coming next. Welcome Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's very nearly coming up to 6:57. The hour's nearly gone away from us, Chloe. I don't know where the time has gone. This from Lady Caroline, who says this. Regarding the clip of Starmer and Lucy Connolly, he said he wasn't across the details in the case, but then literally described the case. I believe in free speech. I'm against incitements of violence. I know. He's such a disingenuous character. He really is. Great show, says Adam in Chester. I'm sure the government will use the motorway service hotels to house migrants. It's a much better place to house them, and no one is there to object to the planning permission charges. Interesting you say that. I mean, my information is that in the part of South London where I live, there's a hotel not far from me which is apparently about to be recommissioned as a migrant hotel. So they're still doing it, right?
That might all fall on its head after the Epping.
Well, you'd like to think so.
They might have to put a pause on it.
You'd like to think so. Story in the page 17 of The Sun this morning. This will wind people up even more. Southport monster Axel Rudicabana has won back privileges including a TV and a DVD player to encourage him to behave. This is the Southport killer, of course, a triple child killer. He hurled boiling water at a guard in May, has had his regimen raised from basic to standard. Why?
Well, apparently this is to try and convince him to behave. The idea is if we keep him occupied, if he's got some telly to watch, then maybe he won't be pouring boiling water over prison guards. So I don't think he's even being rewarded for good behaviour. He's behaving badly and they're just trying to tempt him to behave.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with the migrant hotels. They say, oh, we've got to give them playstations and bouncy castle trips and trips to the theatre to try and convince them to behave and not sexually assault women and sit on the street corner looking at girls' bums.
Unbelievable. Final story of the day, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson saying that basically the state has failed white working class pupils. Very true.
Who'd have thought? White privilege isn't really a thing. If you're a straight white working class male, you're actually underprivileged rather than privileged, as the left would like to believe. And she's acting like this is news. It's GCSE results day, but she's got the figures from 2024, which shockingly say that only 19% of white working class pupils were able to get a strong pass in English and maths last year. And the school that I went to, it was all white working class kids, and the results were terrible. These kids were... It drives me insane when people say white people are privileged from what I saw at school. And Bridget Phillipson seems to be realising it.
Yeah, well, the funny thing, amazing. Somebody from Labour actually opening their eyes and seeing what's going on around them.